Facebook and all this stuff, longevity is just going to work. But it's really been interesting. I got extremely lazy and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Entitled. I got lazy and I got entitled.
Tomorrow is a typical day for me. Tomorrow, gym 7 o'clock, breakfast 8, staff meeting at 9 till 10. We'll talk about just what I expect, what we need, what everybody's role is. Every single person who's here in Nashville right now in my team has a specific role to do. So I'll reconfirm that with everybody tomorrow and just set the expectations. Can be like the zero misunderstanding when it comes to what we expect and what we're looking for, how everybody's to be greeted and how everybody's to be just treated and ultimately made to feel across the next 3 to 4 days, which is the ultimate litmus test for me. How do people feel when they leave these events? It's not always what do they learn. That stuff's pretty easy. It's always how do they feel about being in the event, and ultimately we can do a lot, and how we perform, if you like, in that role is often what actually decides whether or not people want to come back to the next event. So I'll be reinforcing that tomorrow, just making sure everybody is aware of their role and their standards and what we're looking for. Right, it's good. Yeah, working on the book. Chapter 6, 7 and a half done in terms of editing of the new book to sell us healthy. So 3.5 more chapters to edit, which will be done on the flight on the way back to Orlando. So the new book will be ready for proofreader on Tuesday. Pretty cool. Nashville is one of those places that never lets you down in terms of it's obviously got a stereotype for what you expect, but I think it does deliver on what you expect to get here. Just a very laid back, cool vibe, music's everything you want, great weather, not too expensive, lovely people, easy flight, easy to get to now, nothing except what you would hope for a 3 or 4 night stay for a weekend. If you want a few drinks or you want a conference, ideally you go to a conference by day.
Just the basics. When you're as old as I am and you've seen as many patients as I have, is enough. Even if I never mastered Google AdWords and Facebook and all this stuff, longevity is just going to work. But it's really been interesting. I got extremely lazy and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Entitled. I got lazy and I got entitled, and by just doing basic courteous things, calling, texting, emailing, following up, how did things go, how are you doing, and 7 texts and 2 new patients and
So my favourite conversation today so far in Nashville has to be with David Curtis of Connecticut. He's up in the Connecticut area. We've just quite literally bumped into each other as we are leaving the hotel here in Nashville for the big event tomorrow. David's in town, and we had a candid conversation about a few things, and one of them was the confidence now that David has in himself that he says that years ago he possibly didn't have and spent a lot of time hiding behind his credentials, his experience, and ultimately he thinks, and as he sees it now, cost him a lot of money. My takeaway from the conversation that I had with David was that ultimately it's very easy to get lost in tactics. It's very easy to get lost in trying to do very exciting things. It could be Facebook or Google, remarketing, pixels, email marketing, and all of the things that are important. But ultimately, one thing that will never trump the sort of exciting, tactical, technical things is the absolute basics being applied day after day after day after day. And what David might not have in terms of the ability to make something like Google AdWords work, or design his own website, or add tags to his Infusionsoft, what he has is a stunning confidence in himself and the price that he charges, so that as he rightly pointed out, he needs less leads because of that confidence that he has in himself, and the approach that he takes now, which is a lot more standoffish. Rather than rushing to get a patient and somebody that calls him today, rather than assuming that this person, kind of is going to be on schedule today or tomorrow, he takes the approach now of, I'm interviewing you. You're not interviewing me. This is not you putting me on trial. I'm going to make sure that you're a good fit for me. And if you think about what that means, it's a huge mindset shift in the way that you would then speak to patients, because instead of feeling like you need them, which so many of us do, particularly when we start out, and if we're not careful, we end up staying there. We often feel as though when the phone rings, we have to get every single person on schedule. And I see that as being a huge problem. That's a huge strategic, massive principle-based problem. The very fact that you think you need everybody is the reason in the end that you end up with nobody. So David takes the approach now of, he knows his value, he knows his worth, he has that confidence to sell. It's more about him putting them through an interview process than the actual patient, kind of deciding if they want him. Not to mention the fact that he's priced at $450 a session. Now that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and kudos to him for getting that far. But for people watching this who are charging $150, $175 and just struggling with $100 conversations, you need to know that people are out there charging that much money, and it makes business so much easier. And it allows you, if you can sell, and you can confidently sell at $450, a 10 plan of care, $4,500, it means that you can start to be forgiven, if you like, for not having as much technical nous as somebody, somebody might have who is a wizard on Google or a wizard on Facebook, or can fix websites and blogs and social media. You would be forgiven for not being as competent in those areas if your pricing is right and if your ability to sell is there. And something else that David reminded me of, the phrase that I love is, most people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught something new. And what that means is there are so many things that you've likely forgotten right now, that instead of chasing new things all of the time, much like I'm going to remind everybody in the room tomorrow here in Nashville, it's nearly always it's not necessarily a case of what don't I know, it's nearly always what have I forgotten? What have I forgotten that I should be doing? And it's the basic fundamental principles that when I spoke to David there, my favorite is always the fortune is in the follow-up. And whether that's a simple phone call, a simple text message, a letter just to say I'm thinking about you, these are the absolute basic fundamental principles of building a business that you must be able to sell. You must have that confidence to sell. It's not about them hiring you, it's about you deciding to work with them and mutually agreeing that you're a good fit with each other. It's about charging the right price that makes being in business worthwhile. And it's about the absolute most foundational but most gigantic in terms of the gains that you'll make in your business if you apply it. The fortune is in the follow-up, as always. If you don't have those things going on in your business, you can forget about all of these technical fancy things, even putting on a great workshop. If you can't sell, if you can't price properly, you don't have the confidence to sell somebody what you charge, that they must agree to 6 or 8 sessions with you up front, otherwise you will not take them on, because you know that you cannot get somebody truly better. Sure, you can take their pain away, but you cannot get somebody truly better and give them the absolute best possible care if you are feeling like you're taking them on for 2 or 3 sessions and accepting that because of the pressure that you are experiencing from patients. So that's my biggest takeaway. Return to the basics. Most people are forgetting more than they'll ever need to know more of. and the fortune is still in the follow-up. Tonight's my night off. Tonight is the night that Paul gets to play, that he gets to go see Broadway and switches off, because Friday, once tomorrow starts at 9 o'clock, that's it really till Monday at probably 2 before I get to switch back off again. So yeah, tonight's a bonus. Normally when I arrive I get in late Thursday night, but with the short flight these days from Orlando, I get in enough time to go and enjoy the cool city that we're in. So Mark's here, my good friend, staff are here as well, so I think tonight will be Paul's only opportunity to sample Broadway, so enjoy a beer or two and just sample the music and the atmosphere and sit outside a nice bar in Broadway and enjoy an IPA or three maybe, and some barbecue food obviously.